Many, many years ago, I was reading a Sunday Times supplement. There was an interview with the Sex Pistols drummer Paul Cook. Now, I was a little too young when punk hit. I was 12 when the Pistols achieved notoriety with their song God Save the Queen. That said, the article was very good, but the best bit of it was the photo of Paul Cook himself. He was wearing a pair of jeans and a pair of tan-coloured brogues, and I fell in love with his shoes in an instant. So I went in search for a pair just like them, and I found precisely what I was looking for, a pair of brogues from Northampton-based Loke. Now, at the time, the most I'd ever spent on a pair of shoes was probably 30 or 40 quid. The Loke brogues were more than £100. But the heart wants what the heart wants. And so I swallowed deeply and I parted with the money, reassuring myself with my dad's old mantra, always buy a good pair of shoes and a good bed, because if you're not in one, you're in the other. In this and in so many other things, my dad was right. I bought those shoes more than 20 years ago. For many years, I wore them each and every day. I wore them with suits and with chinos and with jeans. I still wear them regularly to this very day. Now, admittedly, those shoes are a bit like Trigger's broom in Only Fools and Horses. On 2 separate occasions, I've sent them back to Northampton to be resoled and rehealed. On each occasion, they've returned looking like a new pair of shoes. The artisans at Loke not only strip off and replace the underside, they add new insoles and new laces, and the uppers have been buffed to an as-new shine while retaining the patina of age. And here's my point. Those shoes cost me more than twice what I would normally spend, but they're already on their 3rd life. They look every bit as good today as they did the day I bought them, only now they're moulded to my feet, fully broken in. They fit like slippers. Now, excavators. And for excavators, read wheel loaders, dozers, graders, off-highway trucks. Notwithstanding the threat of tariffs that might make Chinese-made machines more expensive in the very near future, there remains a temptation to take the cheap option, to look purely at the upfront cost, to save money now and hope that it all turns out well in the long run. But for years, premium brands like Caterpillar, Komatsu, Liebherr and Volvo have extolled the virtues of looking beyond initial cost and to take into account the true lifetime cost of ownership, factoring in maintenance, repairs, fuel costs, likely operating hours and ultimately resale value. It's no coincidence that the brands that advocate for total ownership costs are the very same companies that offer the best repair and remanufacturing services. This debate between cheap and cheerful or expensive and long-lasting is nothing new, and the mathematics supporting that argument are proven. If a machine costs twice as much but lasts 3 times as long, you save 33%. However, there is now a factor that potentially shifts the balance even further in favour of more expensive but longer-lasting brands, and that factor is sustainability, because now and increasingly in the future, the environmental cost will be every bit as important as the financial one. And to support that contention, I shall call upon the expert opinion of Mr. Bean, or more specifically, the actor who plays him, Rowan Atkinson. As many of you know, Rowan Atkinson is a renowned petrolhead. He was also an early adopter of electric vehicles. In an article for The Guardian, he stated that he felt he'd been duped and that he would have done a greater good for the environment by simply hanging on to his trusty petrol car for just a wee bit longer. This is what Rowan Atkinson wrote. Currently, on average, we keep our new cars for only 3 years before selling them on, driven mainly by the ubiquitous 3-year leasing model. This seems an outrageously profligate use of the world's natural resources when you consider what great condition a 3-year-old car is in. When I was a child, any car that was 5 years old was a bucket of rust and halfway through the gate of the scrapyard. Not any longer. You could now make a car for just £15,000 that will, with loving tender care, last for 30 years. It's sobering to think that if the first owners of new cars just kept them for 5 years on average instead of the current 3, then car production and the CO2 emissions associated with it would be vastly reduced, yet we'd be enjoying the same mobility, just driving slightly older cars. That's Rowan Atkinson. Now, before you dismiss Rowan Atkinson's words as the ramblings of a comedian best known as Edmund Blackadder, it's worth remembering that he bagged his first degree in electrical and electronic engineering. He then earned a master's degree in control systems. In the field of construction equipment, a greater emphasis on true lifetime ownership costs and retention of older equipment will require not just one mindset shift, but 3. In the first instance, those buying equipment will need to look beyond the initial price tag to break out the profit calculator and to analyse and understand the true cost of owning and operating a piece of equipment. Secondly, and this one might prove more challenging, we need to dismiss the notion that new machines equate to success. We'll need to forego those photographs of company owners shaking hands with dealer salesmen on the delivery of one or more new machines. And we'll need to dispel the notion that modern equipment, laden with sensors and supported by state-of-the-art telematics, suddenly becomes less reliable the day the machine celebrates its fourth birthday. And then, of course, there is the most problematic mindset shift of them all. Governments around the world, including here in the UK, have set out ambitious plans to be carbon neutral by 2050. To achieve those lofty aims, they will eventually ban the sale of petrol and diesel cars and diesel equipment, while encouraging us all to embrace an electric or hydrogen-fueled future. They will do so presumably knowing that carbon saved here will simply mean the consumption of carbon produced elsewhere. And in their haste, they will send older yet ultimately cleaner equipment to the scrapyard.